Cleveland Guardians unable to complete the sweep against the New York Yankees, but another series win. In that series win, the Guardians proved what the potential of this team could be. There's a couple things they're going to have to address if they're going to get there.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a well-deserved off day of Locked On Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. No podcast, nowhere goes deeper on the Cleveland Guardians than we do. Major leagues, the minors, and the draft. And we're here for you every day, whether the Guardians are playing or they're not. I am Justin Latta. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. I'm a lifelong Cleveland Guardians fan. You can read some of my work and analysis at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, nextturncleveland.substack.com, and coming soon, a few other places as well. And here with my good friend and co-host Jeff Ellis, 5 days a week on Locked On Guardians. We're starting the self-mutes early with Jeff today. I see. I'm going to keep track of how many these are now.
You know, I could also be your Jeff. I don't know how many Jeffs you have in your life. We have a ton in the network, though.
Yeah, we do.
You know, and listen, every podcast can be somebody's first podcast. Like our newest everydayer, Vincent Ovich, 89, who's like, he just discovered us. Yeah, so it could be everyone's. For those who do not know me, I like to mute myself all the time. That's my favorite activity. Before muting myself all the time, I was one of the first hosts that Locked On brought on when they decided to expand to baseball. Before that, I was nationally known as a writer at Scott 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft.
So on today's Locked On Guardians, we are going to talk about the Guardians' confidence meter after another series win. We'll talk about where the Guardians are at, what they have to prove going forward, what they've already proved. There is some uncertainty around Emmanuel Clase right now. We'll get into some data there and some news on that and the bullpen in general. And the Guardians have made some lineup changes the last couple of games as well. We will talk about how much lineup construction matters and how much that really matters overall. Today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, so I know the Guardians didn't get the win on Wednesday as we all wanted, but this is another strong stretch for them. They obviously swept the Pirates, which is something you're supposed to do because they're not a good team. The Yankees, they are a good team.
But they faced Paul Skeens. Again, you're not supposed to get the sweep when you face Paul Skeens. Like, I don't like, and Mitch Keller was an all-star last year. And, you know, like, they still played well against a tough pitching staff. So are the Pirates a great team? No, but they faced some tough arms in that series. So I want to give them their flowers.
And they had to battle some adversity too. You know, they got Skeens on Saturday, big crowd, a lot of anticipation. And then on Sunday, they had to recover from a Clase blown save and eke that one out late when things could have been a little bit iffy. And yeah, Wednesday didn't really go as the Guardians had hoped. Luis Ortiz struggled early, kind of battled and stuck his way around after that. The offense just never really generated opportunities. We're going to touch on all that in this segment. But did the Guardians prove? I don't think, look, when it comes to October, let's be very clear. None of this matters. The only thing that matters in October is getting there, who's healthy, who's hot, and whether or not you have the pieces to match up and the game plan to match up. But where do you feel your confidence meter is in the Guardians now? They're 14-10. They're not in first place anymore. Yada, yada, yada. Where's your confidence meter at after winning this series? Because I know they lost on Wednesday. We'll touch on the reasons they lost Wednesday, what they got to fix. But I think, again, after this series, I feel good about the Guardians hanging with anybody because I said on yesterday's show, every day will remember me saying this. They hit home runs with the Yankees on Monday. They won that game with strong starting pitching. They played guards ball in game 2. They also won with starting pitching, and the bullpen was really good on Tuesday as well. They won in multiple ways. They played well in all facets of the game for the most part those first 2 days. When you do that 2 out of 3 games, good things are going to happen. So I like the composition of where things are at for the most part for this team to be able to compete with anybody in April, May, June, October. I like where this team is at for the most part. There are a couple things which we are going to address.
Before I dive fully into your question, I do want to take a second here and shout out to George's Adventure, who let us know that 2017 was the last time they had a sweep that they did not get today. The interesting thing, and I guess this came up on the television broadcast, is they haven't swept at home since the 70s. That sweep in 2017 was in New York. So it's been a while. They had a chance to do something that has not happened in my lifetime today. So it's unfortunate they didn't get that done. The other side of it is Carlos Rodon is a tough assignment for them. Cleveland is the team he has faced the most in the majors. It's one of the teams he has been the most effective against. And the book is out on Cleveland. It's you want to work low in the zone and throw some breaking stuff. And he was able to execute. Now, I think it was August of last year. They actually had a really good outing against him where he didn't execute as well. That's why I felt good about facing him in the postseason. And then he was pretty strong in the postseason against them. But overall, like they keep winning series. They keep, facing opponents that, they have not had an easy schedule. They've not had the way it's set up in terms of being on the road, in terms of the opponents facing a lot of teams when they're hot. So I feel good. I mean, it's nice to see Tanner and Gavin turn around. Ortiz is inconsistent, and we knew he would be. Like, we joked about him being the new ace after the 3 good starts, but I think, in all seriousness, you and I still expected ups and downs. And this was one of the ones that was a down. And part of the reason is we know he's working on stuff. He's changing his pitch mix. And that often does lead to command issues. It leads to days like this. And this is a Yankees team. We talked about it. Feels like at points the Guardians are emulating, right? They've added guys who are patient, guys who walk. Now, they only had 2 walks today, but a lot of their effectiveness has been being more like the Yankees. The Yankees had 8 walks today. Like, that's what Cleveland is aspiring to. They saw a pitcher on the ropes, and it was body blow after body blow, and they kept getting guys on base. And Cleveland battled. I mean, when it was 2-1, I thought there was a chance, and then they just couldn't get much together in this one. But if you let one game ruin those 2 other great ones, then I don't know if baseball's a sport for you. Like, you got to be focused on big picture. It's a long season. This was game 24. We're at 15% of the way in. There's so much more of the season to go. There's guys who are playing great who may not even be with this team come August. There are guys who are playing terribly who could end up being the home run leader by the time we get there. It's a long season. I'm curious to see what happens, but they're doing what they need to. They're, do people still say that they understand the assignment? I'm old. I don't know what kids are saying nowadays, but they're still, they're winning series. They're having, they haven't really been blown out of games. Like, they've been competitive in almost every single game this year, almost every single series they've been competitive in. And I think, how can you not feel good right now? I do see a lot of negativity, so it's always hard to say what the overall vibe is. But that could just be, what Twitter and YouTube comments are, and I'm only seeing that. But I feel good. My confidence meter is high. This team is doing what they did a year ago and doing what they need to be effective.
Yeah, they are in a negative run differential. I will say that they are in a negative run differential. The only series they really fell out of was obviously the Padres dominated them. The Padres were hot. They're still hot. They had a game against the Angels where things obviously were not good for them either. And then one of the Orioles games got away from them too. That's a blip in 14 games overall at this point, or 24 games at this point. So yeah, there are some things to improve on here, and they have to get some things turned around, some things figured out. But yeah, if you look again, we've been saying this for a couple of games now, a couple of days. If you look at the glass half full approach, is that they haven't played their best baseball overall. They've played some good stretch. This is a good stretch of baseball, but there are still some key components of this team they haven't really figured out yet, and they're still, like Jeff said, they're winning series. They're doing the things they need to do in spite of some of those things that they're facing right now. So they're going to have a well-earned off day on Thursday. They were at the Cavs game Wednesday night. I heard the Dolans bought the team a suite over at the Cavs playoff game. They went over there and celebrated the Cavs game and the win with them. So that was cool to see. Very well deserved. A little bit of team bonding. I will say, Jeff, the one thing I think this Guardians team needs to figure out is how to get Luis Ortiz more consistent. That's going to be a big key for me as the season goes on. And if you really want to look into the crystal ball and try to talk playoffs, as Jim Morris says, playoffs. But we did know Luis Ortiz was going to be inconsistent a little bit. And I think I compared him to Ubaldo Jimenez last time. I said, he might have these games from game to game. He might even be like this inning to inning. He continues to have that fastball go arm side on him. He has a hard time locating arm side with that fastball, and he continues to have a hard time getting that figured out, at least early in the game. I'd love to know what Carl Willis said to him after those 2 runs scored, because after that happened, he came out and he struck out the next 3 guys in a row. He struck out Jazz Chisholm, he struck out Anthony Volpe, struck out Austin Wells. He started throwing the changeup a ton more. So I wondered if the conversation was, hey, let's start throwing some changeups low in the zone, because they ended up all chasing changeups. And this was the most changeups he's thrown in a game all year. And we've seen that evolution continue for him from a guy who was changing his changeup grip in the spring training, who didn't really throw it in spring training. Now he's throwing it more, and this is the most he's thrown in a game. So that's an evolving thing for Luis Ortiz. He's got enough of a pitch mix here where if he's having a hard time locating a certain pitch, or if he's having a hard time just really finding steam with a certain pitch, if guys are attacking him, he's got enough weapons in the arsenal. He's got, the fastball, the cutter, the sinker, the changeup, the slider. He's got all the pieces here to adjust when something's not working. For him, it's really about fastball command. He did push his way deeper in this game. And I will say, I think it's great that Vogt has pushed these guys a little bit more, somewhat out of necessity because of the bullpen situation, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. But I think that may have dividends down the road, is pushing these guys deeper into the games or deeper pitch counts earlier in the season, and then hopefully holding off the bullpen for later in the season. But I think one of the things I want to see the Guardians do is figure out a way to get Luis Ortiz a little more consistent, because I do think over the balance of a long season, you can't have one good outing and one Jekyll and Hyde outing or Jekyll and Hyde inning, especially if you want Luis Ortiz to be a playoff starter for you.
Yeah, no, I see that, but I also know they spent a good chunk of last year with one good outing for bad ones for Logan Allen and Tristan McKenzie and Carlos Carrasco. So it's a long season. There's plenty of time to work with him to try to get him there. The stuff is good enough. The nice thing is the K rate is way up. That's what's standing out to me right now. Even today, it was 8 Ks, I believe, again today after 10 the last time. And that's important. Yeah, and that's very important. So continue working on the development, continue hitting on the points they're working on, and he's a work in progress. We all are, right?
We're all day to day. Another guy who is day to day at this point is Emmanuel Clase. What is up with the Emmanuel Clase situation? What are the Guardians saying? What are the changes that we alluded to earlier in the week? We're going to get into that next on Locked On Guardians.
Did you know that Fire TV is also on Xbox? I didn't. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire Stick 4K devices. No consoles required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you'll be ready to play. Dive into hundreds of titles from EA Sports College Football 25. You haven't been able to play college football in a decade plus. I think 11 years. I could be wrong in that. I have to go check my title from back in the day. To Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and the recently released Avowed from Obsidian. I love Obsidian as a company. As easy as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Avowed, like I said, that's the one that I'd be most interested to play that I haven't tried yet. I love me an RPG. I love I love Oblivion games in general. So that's one that stands out, and it's just nice. You don't have to take all of that hardware on the road. Just need your Fire Stick, paired controller, and you are ready to go. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and a compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire Stick 4K TV Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. And then also one of our newest sponsors is brought the show to you today, and that is Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Jose Ramirez will tell you about that. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are working hard. Manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain easier. Managing logistics easier. Responding to price changes easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward. think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
The Guardians, before Wednesday's finale against the Yankees, said that Emmanuel Clase played catch, but he was dealing with a sore shoulder. That's the first time we've heard the Guardians talk about any kind of shoulder issues that are going on, any kind of injury issues going on. So they said on Tuesday night they were staying away from him because they wanted to give him a second day off after working 3 days in a row, which seemed reasonable, I would say, not unreasonable considering where things have been.
If he's got the shoulder issue, why is he pitching 3 days in a row? That's my question.
Well, I guess the question becomes, when did that develop? When did they know about that? When did he tell them? Because there's two sides of this. How forthcoming are players about injuries, and also, teams got to be a little more cognizant. Because for Clase, like I'll say that him pitching 3 days in a row, they've done it in the past because he's been efficient. Because he only threw, I think, 15 pitches between Saturday and Sunday of the Pirates series. So I didn't necessarily think bringing him back for a third day was a bad idea. He only pitched to 2 batters on Friday. He had a very short outing on Saturday, and then they brought him back on Sunday. So I didn't see an issue with that. It's all about workload. I don't think you necessarily have to go by the book and say, like, well, we have to do this because we've always done it this way. It's okay to go with your players and understand them and read them and know what's going on. But that also means looking for signs of injuries or asking questions or, trying, like Stephen Vogt continues to say that body language is the biggest thing that he looks for, is because you can tell when you spend so much time with these guys that you have to know what their tells are and how they're looking on a day-to-day basis. And when you can read something is wrong with them, because players aren't going to be forthcoming about injuries. Let's be honest. Most guys are not going to come out of games for the most part. They're not going to tell you unless something is obvious and they show it, like getting hit by a pitch, whatever. So,
which is the wrong point of view, because you are compromised. Like, this is something the team needs to work on in general and get past. Like, it is not playing through injury means you're playing it at a lesser percentage. You are not playing as well. And like, I know we keep saying it, but like, at some level, you need to start working with these players when they're in the minors and explain to them, like, being tough is not valuable. Being good is valuable. And if you are, if you're going to play through an injury that's going to make you, like Lane Thomas, like, came back too soon, it seems like. Now he's back on the disabled list. Like, this needs to be something that stops in general. Like, I'm just going to say that. Like, this is something that needs to be addressed organization wide.
This is not just organization. This is every sport. This is every team in baseball. This is every sport. Especially in baseball, there are things that you're going to play throughout the season, because everybody's got bumps and bruises at some point. Nobody ends the year healthy. I realize it's only April. Nobody ends the year healthy. So you have to figure out, like, is this something I can play through, or is this something I need to get checked out? And I don't even know. I can't really read whether or not how serious this is, because I didn't, You have to take these things at certain face value too, because like Stephen Vogt went from Tuesday saying, well, we're staying away from him because he pitched 3 days in a row. And then he comes back Wednesday and tells people that, well, he's a little bit sore in the shoulder. So you really have to listen to you have to watch what the Guardians do, watch what the teams do, not what they say, because he said 2 different things in 2 different days.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have a chance to pitch on Wednesday. So what you're going to have to do is watch on Friday whether or not he pitches to determine how serious this is and how he responds to that. Because, is this a, I don't want to say excuse, but is this a way to lessen the blowback on Clase? Because I don't think so, because it doesn't really benefit Clase. It doesn't really benefit the Guardians to come out and say, well, Clase is hurt, banged up. That doesn't benefit anybody. So for him to say that publicly tells me maybe something is up. But again, I want to see how they respond, not necessarily what they say, because that news changed within less than 24 hours.
Yeah, and it is, worth pointing out again, we've talked about that his mechanics aren't quite right. Like, on top of changes, which we'll talk about, but like his release point was his extension was changed, which is a weird thing to do for a guy who's had very consistent extension. There's little things here and there that does make one wonder, like, is he trying to compensate? Like, is his extension point off? Is he have, is it a lower, where he's extending it is now, elongated. Is that intentional or is that compensation? And, it just goes back to
That could
in
be
the situation.
compensation for an injury. You're right. That could
Yes.
be.
And then, the other thing, you get right down to it is like, it's not just that this dude has pitched 70 games a year for the last 4 years. It's every time, even when it's a low pitch count, you get up, you get warmed up, you're throwing a handful of pitch. Like every single time he gets up, you're throwing a decent amount of pitches in the pen. It's not just the pitches in the game. It's when you're a reliever, there's amount of wear and tear just from warming up and going through. Should we go ahead and talk about like the data I got from Lance Brzezinski's Substack that I subscribe
Yeah.
to?
Yeah,
So
we've
this is
talked we've talked about him changing his location this year
yeah.
and where he's located in the cutter this year.
So like the interesting thing is with Lance Brzezinski, I pay for his newsletter. I think it's worth it. And he said that the cutter results actually look fantastic compared to last year when he's hitting his spots, and that's the big deal because his swinging strike rate went up from 14% last year to 22% this year. His chase percentage is up 10%. And what he's done is essentially he's instead of hitting the inner third, he's aiming for the outer third. But the problem, unlike a year ago, is his command is now he's drifting to the middle. So a year ago, if he missed, it would be outside, it would be inside, and it wouldn't affect anything. Now, when he's hitting the outer third and he misses, it's a meatball in the middle. Guys still are not barreling it. The barrel percentage on that pitch is lower at least when this article was written, than previous years. So we're kind of waiting to see, but it looks like he's kind of trying to make the change seems geared to cause more swing and miss and to have more punch outs. Unfortunately, if he's not hitting his zone, then that makes it less effective. And I know a lot of people have been armchair pitching coaches about developing another pitch or what he needs to do to change. The thing right now is he did change, and it's leading to some results that are better, but it is also leading to some of these issues because and it's not even necessarily meatballs. It's just he's getting BABIP to death at points, but sometimes he does get hit hard. But when you're aiming for that outer third and you miss down the middle, and that's where it is. So he's trying to make the pitch more effective, but unfortunately, he is not effective. And I'm very curious to see health first and foremost. It'd be like every single year in April and March and May, we have people telling us that it's time to be done with Clase as the closer, which is crazy talk. But more than that, it's like, this is what happens. He does struggle. Now, is it more pronounced this year? Absolutely. But it's a time where he struggles, where he is also, maybe there's a health issue, but he's also pretty drastically changing how he pitches. So it's not unsurprising for a guy to have some adjustment struggles. The same thing we talked about with Luis Ortiz. If you're going from inside to the outside, he's completely changing where he's trying to hit, and that could lead to adjustment struggles as he's trying to figure it out. And it's not an easy pitch for him to command with the movement and velocity on it as well. So maybe he needs to go back to the old one. Maybe that's the answer. But I think health is the one thing that you and I can't quantify.
Yeah, health is going to be very important for this bullpen because the depth, if Clase is hurt in general, is not good, and then the depth is not there right now behind the main part of the bullpen. We'll get into that in the next segment, as well as lineup construction and the lineup changes the Guardians have made. So stick around for that on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of some ballpark food. I do love the smell of peanuts and hot dogs at a game. And if you're looking to go at the last minute, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals all in pricing and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, we know that tickets drop as Gametime gets closer, so you can score an incredible deal. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and the Guardian season is here, so we can count on them to help us grab tickets that meet all of our needs this season. The Red Sox are in town this weekend. That's going to be a hot ticket, a weekend series against the Red Sox. So Gametime is a great place to check out tickets for this weekend if you're looking to go. The weather is a little bit up in the air on Friday, so if you're looking to go last minute, maybe the weather clears up. You don't want to buy those tickets ahead of time. Gametime, good place to do that, so you're not locked into it, and You just use Gametime to get better deal because of the weather, because the first pitch is getting closer. All the benefits of Gametime, none of the commitment. It's really good. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. We are free everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Podbean, wherever. Make sure you're hitting the bell on YouTube so you never miss a video. Make sure you're auto downloading on all your favorite audio apps so you're always getting the episode right into your feed. And check out our Insiders program as well. We chat during the game with our insiders. We give them news, analysis there. Some additional content, including, like a monthly subscriber meetup on video. We do some bonus episodes from time to time. We also do some written content. Jeff's got draft information up there. I've got a whole prospect handbook in there. That's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians to check that out. Jeff, the other thing about the bullpen we have to address besides Emmanuel Clase is Andrew Walters is also on the injured list in Columbus. We talked about that the other day, but it's not for his shoulder. He came out of the game with some elbow discomfort. He said his elbow did not feel comfortable. That is a very bad statement to make.
Yeah.
We came into this year feeling really good about this bullpen, even though we knew we've been trying to prepare all the fans and listeners for it as much as we can. There's going to be regression. The bullpen was not going to be as good as it was a year ago. And it could still be good, even if it's not as good as it was a year ago. However, we've got Andrew Walters, who's hurt now, and the elbow conversation scares the heck out of me. Franco Alamon is hurt again. He got hurt in spring training. Nick Enright is hurt. Emmanuel Clase, they're talking about shoulder issues. The bullpen depth we thought was here has evaporated. And I know people are saying, well, how much longer is Seawald going to last? And all this other stuff.
The whole season.
But you have to hope the whole season, because those signings, the Junis and Seawald signing, is very important. Eric Sabrowski, didn't you mention Eric Sabrowski? He's still hurt. There are guys, Slade Ciccone, I don't know if they're going to stretch him out as a starter. He might need to be a relief option because they just don't have a lot. Zach Kent made his major league debut on Wednesday afternoon. He looked okay. Some good stuff. The bullpen depth that we thought the Guardians had has really evaporated. The Walters TBD, Clase TBD, Alamon and Enright, you hope you get back at some point, but those are some big names. Sabrowski as well. It gives you a little bit of pause, I will say. That's the two things to me. I feel confident with the Guardians, but I want to also see Luis Ortiz get more consistent. I also want to see the bullpen health. Even with regression, they're still going to be good, but if they're not healthy, that doesn't help anybody. And I want to see that. I don't know how you can fix that, but for me to have full, complete confidence, I'm going to need to see a healthier bullpen.
Yeah, and this is why they added pieces. This is why and it's what every team's going through to varying degrees. We talked about, we're still sitting here waiting to see if McKenzie gets claimed, even though he couldn't find, the broadside of a barn, is an expression that people it was bad. His last outing, he looked completely broken and lost, but we still think there's a good chance someone will claim him because every team needs pitching right now. The Brewers paid an obscene cost for a guy who's a plus version of Slade Ciccone. They gave up a high pick and a first rounder for him. So every team is searching for pitching very badly right now. And Cleveland was smart to add depth to their pen, because the other thing, when you have all of those, and you talked about in segment one, I think the having pitchers go later is very intentional because they don't want to overwork their pen like they did a year ago. I think they are very intentional in trying to do kind of the load management like they talked about in the NBA equivalent with the bullpen this year. But also, having had so many guys in the bullpen get used so heavily a year ago, they knew there would be health issues, and there's always health issues with pitching to begin with, and they built in some depth. Unfortunately, some of that built-in depth has also been hurt. But, you go down and you look at the minors, it's pretty ugly. I know someone asked about Will Dion. It's the ERA is fine, but his whip, he's letting guys on a bunch. And they just don't, I don't even know who the next guy up would be at this point in time, unless you decided to have Ninkasi switch, to a relief role instead of a starter role, which I don't think they're going to do. Like, they just don't have anyone in AAA where I'm like, oh, that's the guy. I mean, is it Velasquez? Is it Allard? I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we want to talk a little bit about the lineup changes. We've been trying to do this for a couple days. We're not going to have as much time as we'd like in this episode, but Jose Ramirez is back in the 3 spot. Nolan Jones is hitting at second, and that's changing on a day-to-day basis. I look at it as this. I wish they'd still stick with Jose in the 2 spot. I do. But I understand why they're doing it. And I don't think it's because of Jose's comfort. It might be. To me, I think this is, again, lengthening the lineup. I think this has more to do with lengthening the lineup and trying to get guys on in front of Jose, but also just grind pitchers down. And, you're breaking up your switch hitters by having Santana after not necessarily directly following Jose Ramirez, which is good. Sometimes he's hitting fourth, but Kyle Manzardo, I know he said some comments too. Kyle Manzardo does have to be in the lineup every day. I agree. You can't keep DHing Jose and taking Manzardo out. I think Manzardo has to be in there every day. You need him, and you can use Jose as a pinch hitter. But I don't know how this is going to go. I think lineup construction as a whole, I think you'll agree with me, Jeff, is overblown. But I like the idea in practice here of trying to use Jones as a way to grind pitchers down before Jose comes up and get Jones going and hopefully lengthen the lineup a little bit, because with those top 4, with those top 5, you got 5 guys in the order who really work the count. Kwan, Jones, Jose, Manzardo, Santana. They work the count. I think that's a good way to go about it. I just like it in theory. I want to see it pan out a little bit better, even if I do like Jose hitting second. I don't think it has to do with his comfort level. I think it has more to do, like I said, with lengthening the lineup.
I will say on the broadcast, they did specifically mention him and his comfort level and that having come up. So I think there is a degree of it. I don't like Jones too, because right now he's not being effective, like consistently.
True.
You need, and that is the most important spot in the lineup. You don't want to put a guy in there just to grind. So, I mean, I'd almost rather see Kwan hitting 2. I'd rather have Martinez 1, Kwan 2, Jose 3. But I do think, like to me,
what about Santana back in the leadoff spot?
I mean, I'm fine with that as well. I mean,
I would in the preseason.
Yeah. I want Kwan too, frankly. That's my view on it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll be back with you on Friday. The Guardians not playing on Thursday, but we're still here for you on Friday. We're going to go around the farm. We're going to talk about some prospects. Jeff has some draft news and tidbits for you. So if you're into the draft, we got some good stuff to talk about there, and we'll preview the Red Sox series as well.
I wrote out my first mock. Find out who I have going to the Guardians. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download. It helps. Thank you all for joining us, especially to all of our everydayers, and go Guardians.